guys, what's up? It's Marissa back for another booktube video, and this time I am going to be reviewing An Enchantment of Ray by Margaret Rogerson. Now, this book, it only took me a couple hours to read through. It's like 294 pages or something like that, so it was very fast. It's very easy. The letters are fairly big, or the print is fairly big in this book, so it really didn't take very long. Now, the reason that it was only 294 pages is because there's not a lot that happens. Let me say that again. There's not a lot that happens in this book. The characters, you had absolutely no backstory on them whatsoever. It's basically a YA romance fantasy novel, which is great. I like reading those as much as the next person. However, what happens has to be as interesting as the love story that happens in it. You know, I mean, give me a break. If I wanted just a love story, I would read romance. And I don't like romance, so we're just going to say that. So anyway, this book follows Isabel, who is a human living in fairy. She knows about the fair folk. She knows how dangerous they are, yada, yada, yada. She thinks she's protected. You get a little bit of flashback to her parents, how they died. They were just basically killed by a fairy beast. Okay, great, whatever. So basically that's all the backstory you get on this girl. Nothing else. She's living with her aunt and her two sisters, and her sisters were turned into goats by the fair folk. Or turned from goats into humans by the fair folk. My bad. And why? Who the hell knows? Nobody ever says it in the rest of this book. So, I mean, they make it out to be like it was an accident, but I don't really see what these goats turned to girls has to do with the story whatsoever. It really doesn't. I mean, they eat weird stuff. Okay, rocks, salamanders, yada, yada, yada. You get the point. I don't really think it lends to the story whatsoever, and I'm really not sure why she put that in here, because it doesn't do anything for me. So, anyway, you meet Rook, who is the prince of the Autumn Court, and, you know, he's devilishly handsome, and he's just like the other fair folk, except that he's actually nice, and Isabel immediately, like, trusts him and, like, falls in love with him as he's sitting for these portraits that she does, because that's why they come see her, is they sit for these portraits, because she's an amazing artist. She's only 17. So she immediately falls in love with him, and he doesn't like what she paints in his portrait, because she sees this like deep sadness in his eyes, and any weakness in the, you know, the fairy folk, especially royalty, can be seen as, you know, as a weakness, and they will oust them for it. So anyway, he gets really mad and tries to drag her back to his court to save his own face, essentially, and they run into problems and yada, yada, yada. It just, everything moves very fast, and nothing's ever really fleshed out. Like, the biggest scene in there was like 5 minutes, and like they just run away from it. I'm like, what? Wait, what? This was like your chance to, you know, describe these like awesome fight scenes between the fairy and then nothing. And then at the end, it's the same thing. Like, there's another, the fight that they ran away from comes to find them, and there's like no fight scene. It's like, you know, she's painting, and then stuff's going on in the periphery that you don't really know what's going on, and then all of a sudden it's over, and you're like, what? What the hell? What the hell just happened? Like, okay, now the book's over. Apparently this is the first in the series. I will definitely not be reading the rest of the series. I think the writing's good, but you really need to flesh out your characters more. You really have to give the reader a backstory to like describe their motivations and why they're doing these things. You can't just throw two people together and go, oh, they instantly fell in love. Okay, I mean, seriously, I was in love with Leonardo DiCaprio after watching him in Titanic when I was a teenager, but you know what I mean? It's just, it's not real life. I know it's fantasy, but it has to at least flow a little bit with real life. Anyway, I mean, it was a good fluffy book. It was what I needed to read after reading Wicked and trying to read Son of a Witch, because those are deep books. So it was something light and fluffy, and I could finish it in a day, get it off my TBR list, and get rid of it. Honestly, I'm going to give this book 3.5 stars. I have not had a very good reading week. 2 out of the 3 books I finished didn't really care for all that much. I mean, the writing was great, but, you know, it was just not happening for me. So, anyway, hope you guys liked my review, and I hope you have a great evening.